it for you. Okay, just a second. Let me open it up.
So why are you quitting WoW?
It's 4 years, man.
I really don't like, this is something that like kind of bothers me about Preach, is that I don't like how if I go back in time I can see Preach with like more and more and more hair, and like now he's bald. Right? Because then I can look at my videos from like 5 years ago, like 4 years ago, whatever, and I had a lot more hair than I do now, and I'm just fucking worried that what happens in 4 years from now? Maybe a little bit of that.
4 years playing the one goddamn game over and over again. I'm
Yeah.
done with it. This expansion was so hard.
That sucks.
Guild died, well, nearly died like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
People left and burned out, having to raid all the time.
Yeah. So not even another expansion would bring you back to WoW.
Well, what's it going to be? More levels, more zones, more raids, same shit over and over and over again.
There's a lot of people that thought like that too.
You are aware that Arthas is in the next expansion.
Fuck.
Wrath was such a good time, man.
Yummy.
Hey,
What's going on?
Mario Kart.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, right?
The hunger your weapon feels.
Not today.
I love these videos, man. They're just so, they're so funny.
Yummy.
Did you truly expect
Why?
to fulfill Wolverine's task on a
Oh, the Lich King's in the baby's toys. That's perfect.
What's up with you? Should we just go and get Wrath? Hey! Hey, come on, big guy!
That's
Come
right,
on, let's go and get
dude.
Wrath. That'll cheer you up.
Fine, so Arthas was on our brains and we had to go and buy all the Wrath of the Lich Kings. I think we actually got 5, but you took your copy home, mate.
I did, mate.
Looking back though, memory lane, boys. That's the one I bought to join Method. 18 quid cash.
Oh, to be
So,
play on EU,
let's
of
go
course.
see Arthas in every cutscene ever.
I think he already plays on EU. Never mind.
Dramatic walk away.
Forgot.
TBC's ending was soul-crushing for many. The enormous drought of content since the Black Temple and the Sunwell was just too much, and as the sun set on
We had the Isle of
Crusade,
Quel'Danis.
player fatigue was evident. WoW was
I like
okay.
that.
Subs. In fact, it was still
like Isle of
rising, but at a
Quel'Danis?
far more steady
Fuck
rate
yeah,
than
dude, that was
ever before.
amazing.
Who knows
only
how
good
long
because it
the
was the
Warcraft
first
3
one.
legend was in the making. Perhaps it was on the
Trash.
roadmap for years.
No,
but
5 Shot
nevertheless,
had some good
this
PvP
is the
there.
story everyone had been hoping for since WoW itself was announced. Cliche as the Arthur story is, who cares? This
Yeah.
is the story that hooked millions of people to the Warcraft universe. Can you imagine what it must have been like to sit there at BlizzCon 2007, knowing a new WoW expansion is about to be announced, to be there for that one historical moment
I was there.
of having Arthas appear on screen?
I
That
wasn't,
level of excitement.
Well, I imagine it would have been cool, mate, if everything hadn't leaked 2 days before. We even had the box art, a full feature list, Death Knights, the whole shebang. It was ruined. Blizzard
Some
knew
things
it.
never
Even had to
change.
acknowledge it on stage.
Alright, so live content updates are pretty cool. Live content updates are cool. But the dev team's been working on something much more special than that. Now, I know there's always rumors on the internet.
They know.
Rumors on the internet and thinks they know what I'm about to talk about.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Hey, keep your hands up. Your accounts are all banned.
That's back whenever they could have fun at BlizzCon.
You know why?
Death Knights, hero class. What does it mean? I don't know. Death Knights, Death Grip, Death Decay, Death Reroll.
I almost rerolled DK.
Die.
I probably should
Before
have.
that, though, was the Wrath pre-event. Depending on who you ask, though, it was either amazing or the worst thing ever.
My mom
It
almost
also
quit the game
serves,
over
in my
this.
opinion, as
This
a
was the
sense of
best thing
humor test.
ever.
She almost
If it
quit the
happened
game over
today, I
it.
can only imagine the amount of cringe spam from gamers who get uncomfortable at anything slightly out of the ordinary.
Here we go.
The plague
There it is.
was
It's you guys.
released. Cities were overrun with undead. Players were able to turn any other player into a mindless zombie at will. So for a little while, the major cities were annoyed.
Everything was
Maybe
dead.
I was being harsh on
This
those who
was
hated
so
it, but
good.
honestly, it fit the theme of an
Well, yeah, it
unstoppable
was. It was
invasion
great.
really, really well. There was nothing you could do to prevent the spread, which was the fucking point and the eeriness of walking over literally
Yes.
hundreds of corpses. It was a sight to behold. However, the complaining was rife. The people could not be without their auction house, and the event was cut short. Blizzard pulled the plug early.
Too
and
many
this all
babies.
lasted, and its historical rage lasted for 5 days.
Is it really only 5 days?
And the invasion was over. Blizzard had learned from the TBC launch. Now players had a couple of zones to start their journey. Instead of being funneled into a single zone with no quest mobs, and the zones were interesting. I know it's subjective, but the design of the Wrath
need to
zones
sell my
actually
level 7
rivaled the beauty
items.
of TBC for me. Particularly Icecrown and the Storm Peaks. Talking of the Storm Peaks then, what a tremendous idea. Flying existed, and it wasn't this creative burden it is today, so they embraced it. They locked it off
before
till
Blizzard
77,
hated flying.
not only via the skill being unavailable, but by geographically sealing off the later zones until you gained flying, similar to how they locked off the floating city till midway through leveling. With that in mind,
That's actually true. I
the
never
Storm
thought of that.
Peaks and Icecrown were
I don't know why.
fully designed with flying as a feature. With the enormous looming and imposing towers ominously
This is
present
how
in all
flying should be,
directions.
right here.
We haven't seen anything like this since then, especially with the efforts
Pretty
of
much.
Blizz to actually remove flying. I really wish they would re-embrace this feature of the game instead of trying to lock it in the basement. Just think about Northrend's overall world design. I guarantee it carries more memorable locations in the minds of players than any
That was
other
a good
continent,
ban.
including the Broken
Yeah.
Isles. Be it the traversal into Coldara, the gorgeous, intricate spire of Dragonblight contrasted wonderfully by the blighted lands surrounding it, or simply the menacing presence of Naxxramas and the other citadels floating over the tundras. Then take all that and put it smash face up against the cheeky little bastard that is the Grizzly Hills. Do you remember the music?
The best
What
zone in the game.
ridiculous is this in comparison to the grimy pestilence everywhere else?
Grizzly Hills
That
best
was some
zone game
real
period
vanilla
ever.
style design. And it was worth 2
Besides
tons, if
Red Ridge
anything
Mountains
was.
pre-Cata.
Wrath brought in the first real in-game cutscenes to advance the story.
That's right.
The Wrathgate is a must-see for any player, but good God, the real sadness. The real sadness! And some of you won't even know this exists until now and will never unknow it. Anyone who started in Cata, or after, is that they removed something. What is widely considered the best quest Blizz ever made.
I don't know about
The
that.
Battle for the Undercity.
It was really
This
cool
was
though.
such a major moment of standing side by side with the leaders while taking the role of a wave crashing against a seemingly unstoppable enemy.
I remember this shit.
A
This is
quest now
fucking
lost to
amazing.
history for us lucky few, yet Blizz has gone to great lengths successfully to replicate this style of moment. So yeah,
They've
they
tried.
nailed the leveling experience. But this time they gave real thought to what happens after the cap, which up until now had meant players
Trying to think
instantly
versus the-
porting away to begin the gear grind and move
1250
some dailies.
bits, thank you.
Icecrown was the jewel. It was understood that most players would hit cap very, very early into
Icecrown
Icecrown.
sucked.
So instead of just having it be a bunch of the usual quests for a rainy day, Icecrown
Why did
had
they
the
remove this quest, by the
absolute
way?
best story quest
The
lines in the
revamp.
entirety of Wrath. And each step also unlocked the dailies to keep it relevant for the entirety of the expansion. Whether you were controlling Arthas himself, or in the pursuit of raising Sindragosa, or standing side by side with Darian Mograine inside the Icecrown Chapel, preparing for the inevitable storming of ICC. So if you weren't around at launch, you're probably thinking Wrath was just an incredible, incredible time. 25th of November. A date. A guild name. Soon to be called Insidia. The first mega guild, the merger of SK and Nihilum. The two top boys
Yep,
of
here we
TBC
go.
were to drop some players and become raiding
I
gods.
think Fresh 50. I appreciate that.
66
I might take a look at
hours
that.
into the launch
you very
of
much.
Wrath, all the raid content was dead. What? I want you to check this forum post.
That's
You're
how
still an
easy
MMO
it was.
champion. Read the hate, the vitriol, and flat out lies and crazy stories posted by the community at this moment. Now, while that in itself, I'll be honest, that's not unusual, notice the actual funny part. The thread completely dies as soon as reports came in that pugs of everyone else who had also hit level cap from various servers had also started clearing the content.
That's how fucking
Now, while
easy
the
it was.
armchair uniform bumfucks' voices were quelled until their next rage meal was prepared, those of us in the raiding world were soon to discover that something had gone very, very wrong with Wrath of the Lich King's raiding.
I don't think it was that
Malygos,
bad.
The great Spellweaver, crushed. Sartharian dunked, and of course the return of Naxxramas, which was pretty much a welcome feature, honestly. It was the first revamped content ever, so we didn't know what was in store, and Nax was fucking amazing. Those of us
That's
who
true.
went there thought it was so good. It had a legacy all of its own.
It was bad? I don't know if it was. Like, McCollum, do you think that was bad that the raid content got cleared that fast?
I've always thought that raid content should be extremely hard, and if like it should be pretty much every raid should be like classic Nax. Like only the top of the top, you gotta farm for fucking days and hours to get all the shit necessary to go in there and kick some ass. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be a fucking raider. You should be a fucking loser farming fucking BGs or some shit.
I feel,
That is what raiding should be. It's for neckbeards only.
But like Nax, like those raids weren't hard. It just took 40 people. That was the only reason they were hard.
Well, so what? That's still hard. I mean,
don't
we
know,
had
man.
this discussion.
We
already
talked-
had this.
that's you're right. I don't know. I think we
Yeah,
just have, we have
yeah,
a
we've
difference
already
of
had
opinion.
this.
We have a difference of opinion
Yeah.
here. I think raiding should be easier. I think this was obviously this raid tier was a little bit too easy, but in general, I think raiding could be easier. I'd be completely fine with that. Okay.
Or if they don't want to do that, if they don't want to make it neckbeards only, how about you just? What about just one 40-man raid? Like just one. You get all the boys together one night. You fucking go in. It's hard as shit. You get everybody.
Oh.
People are drunk. They're fucking drunk. They're yammering over Disgrace. Look at that. And they're fucking
Yeah.
having fun. Everybody's having fun. You're doing it with the boys. Everybody, all the dude. That's what
Sorry.
they should do.
Yeah, I totally agree.
A legacy that was cultivated and fostered, mainly though by those who never went inside. Like it or not, inaccessibility breeds desire, discussion,
hear that?
imagination, speculation.
Blizzard?
They all run wild, just as it had done in the past. What does it feel
Apparently
like
not.
to actually see Ragnaros rise out of the lava? Don't get me wrong, I have no issue with content being accessible to all, but I do believe it doesn't have to be immediate and unfulfilling, so that all that excitement and anticipation is just pissed
Look at that
away.
UI, man.
Nax 2.0
Amazing.
was a total failure in the eyes of Raiders, but a success to those who lived in the pug world, while
That's
also
true.
being a nice introduction for new players.
Yeah, but the achievements, mate, they were the real challenge.
Yeah, Immortal was pretty hard.
Oh yes,
To
the
start
new
Therian through
achievement
Drakes.
feature. We needed that, and it has to be put to good use, am I right?
Yep.
I'm told this all
was
the
true.
time from those with the rose-tinted team. The base raid was the easy mode. The achieves were the hard mode.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's literally only true for Sartharian and his 3 drakes. Hell, everyone was amazed when Method released the info that contrary to Blizzard's statements that 10 was designed to be easier than 25, that in fact Sartharian 3 drakes 10-man was actually the most difficult challenge in Wrath of the Lich King.
That's
But
true.
that's the only...
I never
only
did it
one
in Nax.
example of the achievement statement
I got
being
kicked
true.
out because I got hit by a
have the
firewall
immortal
too many
achievement.
times.
It's the title I wear on every character, no
Yep.
matter what overwhelming challenge I defeat in World of Warcraft. I love it so much.
I
Was
was
it
a
hard?
dummy.
Not in the traditional sense. If you think to yourself, hard. Is hard asking people with bad PCs or internet to stand outside the room on Thaddeus and Hygen? Then yeah, it's tough.
That
I
was
guess.
me.
Or hoping the mind controllers don't have something happen on Vesuvius. Or having to raid at midnight
That
to
was
cut out
me.
the huge lag in the instances. Then you could call it hard. Malagos's achievement were complete bullshit. Bring a load of range DPS and some Death Knights, stack up sparks and go bleh. That isn't something
Kill
that
Malagos
requires
under
a
6
team
minutes.
effort or strategy. How did this happen? How do you take something as legendary as Naxxramas and just remove its soul? Let me ask you something.
So what is a Wrath Baby?
So we asked around, and the common belief is that a Wrath Baby is simply someone who started playing WoW in Wrath of the Lich King.
Wrong.
A Wrath Baby was in
Wrong.
fact a really derogatory term used to describe those
Really
who either
derogatory?
loved the new Wrath model or indeed started in Wrath and never understood the hardships and trials that the now self-titled old school had been through.
That's true.
Wrath is a major turning point in WoW's gameplay. A turning point we are still feeling today. It was the point where overall things were made much, much easier.
When they made the game
Tanks,
for the
example,
masses.
now had an enormous threat multiplier added that wasn't fully disclosed in a strange way. A simple Googling will find a number of sites trying to figure out exactly how huge this invisible buff was. Needless to say, if you were tanking in Vanilla or the Burning Crusade, then Wrath made it very trivial. Not to
Wrath
mention
was
that
whenever
all
tanking
tanks
was
now had
actually
fully
fun.
working AoE abilities
I
that were
hated
no
taking
longer
in BC and
limited to
Vanilla.
2 or 3
Suck
enemies,
dick.
with reducing the raid size, changing class mechanics, removing some of the more evil original mechanics, and being that the bosses were designed for a game that was years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nax was pretty shitty with all these things combined. This is always the issue with revamped content, and why the new Karazhan not being a total revamp is a very exciting prospect. Old content is just that. It's old. It was designed around a different game. And as the game develops, that
People
older
have better
content
abilities
just
and shit.
doesn't fit
That's the main
into
thing.
The new hole. Meaning that in all likelihood, it's not going to be as good compared to when it was created. We should have seen it coming. So early on in Wrath, you were likely to be in one of two camps. If you were a player who'd done some well, then Wrath became a snowfest very, very quickly. But for everyone else,
Yeah.
it was pretty fucking awesome, honestly. The new world dailies were fantastic.
Thought
and
Wrath
equally,
was
if not
great.
more creative than the Burning Crusade. Leaping up a mountain as a mini Mimiron robot never got old, just as helping 2 seals find the love they deserved was a welcome twist on the usual collect X reputation quest we'd seen in the past. So what about PvP, boys? Wintergrasp?
Wintergrasp was terrible, but it was the best one we've ever had. That's the truth. Wintergrasp was literal dog shit. Oh, question marks? Here's what Wintergrasp was for Kel'Thuzad. Because Kel'Thuzad, no, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna tell him. Yeah, because they don't fucking remember. Because they don't fucking remember. Because they don't fucking remember.
You're
They
such
don't
a
fucking
fucking
remember.
crybaby.
No, I'm not crying. I'm not. That's the opposite. I'm saying the opposite. Wrath of the Lich King, like, all right, fucking Wintergrasp on Kel'Thuzad was 8 different tanks spamming the demolition attack at the graveyard for the Horde, to where as soon as the Horde player would spawn, they would be immediately fucking killed by like 15 different artillery rounds that are being shot at them every half second. And there was never a time that the Horde ever had VOA. It was hilarious. It was really funny. And as Alliance, it was great.
So Halal was a bit...
Fucking sucked.
But not the idea
Yeah.
of a mass battle trying to recapture the classic Alterac Valley in itself. Well, that's alright. So Wintergrasp was the next effort. An all-out assault on the fortress
Better
using
than
tanks
Halal.
and well-mounted turrets, catapults, and destructible walls, with the ultimate reward of super easy puggable bosses that gave PvE and PvP raid quality gear.
That you can ninja loop.
The concept, the design, 120 v
There it
120. So good, actually. So reality. If we can,
I should post some of my videos
as
from
a
back then.
species, after a decade, convince just 10 players to not camp the middle of Warsong Gulch, then what do you think happens when you throw 240 players into a sandbox?
Was it 240?
Every now and again, there would be an
What the
amazing
fuck?
battle in Wintergrasp. Being on the defensive was always much more fun for me, more specifically on the defensive in a pretty evenly matched fight, but losing. The walls
get on a
crashing
turret and
down
go
as the enemy
AFK.
tanks rolled in, flanked by troops on the ground, making that final push to the gates of the keep. Very cool. Unfortunately, most of the time there would be this enormous testicle.
Blizzard
of people
should make
just stood
this
in front
a,
of the main gate, getting battered with
rumble.
turret fire, and then running back to their corpses.
It's coming back,
just
actually.
waiting for someone else.
Great
to
idea,
do
Blizzard.
something, which would let
You're
them
welcome.
win, and then someone will make a group for the raid bosses.
Yep.
You get the idea. 100 toys to play with, but not playing is preferable to so many. Strand of the
Who would go
Ancients and the
AFK?
other new BGs. Of course, vehicle combat was back. What the fuck was going on with vehicle combat in Wrath of the Lich King?
It was great.
The devs seem to have such a boner for it. Malygos, Wintergrasp, Strand, Flame Leviathan, Oculus. Gotta get that vehicle combat in there. I never minded it too much, but in practice, we had those immediate flashbacks to Terran Gorfiend in the Black Temple. We all know those guys who are presented with 3 or 4 buttons and turn from some of the better players you've ever known to someone who resembles my dog with the Wii U pad. Players complained a lot of what they said was endless vehicle combat.
They can't handle
the
it.
5 cases I just mentioned, and 3 of them were PvE and 2 of them are PvP. Just endless, I say.
Flame Leviathan was an
I'm
awesome
sure most
fight.
of the
Anybody
wine
that
was
disagrees
that so
is
many
wrong.
just couldn't get their fancy add-ons to work when inside a vehicle. How do I track Pyrite again? So as
So
it was
dumb,
the
dude.
closest we
It's
got
sad.
to vehicle combat. After that was tremendous and wonderful. The beautiful gunship battle. But come on. At least we got leaping from a gunship down in the enemy base as a normal function of the game. That's a win right there.
Yeah. Which one was this? Oh, this one was so bad. This is the worst cinematic ever.
And we're back in the game. The Ulduar cinematic looks dated as hell now. I can't
Yes.
even tell if it was intentional that his face looks like Gordon Ramsay's ass. But the little previews
Wait,
of
what the
what
fuck?
awaited
It
us
does.
across that broken bridge we had all seen by now just looked incredible. My balls clenched when I saw that it was going to be so large it had its own train. The train ride from Stormwind to Ironforge is so good, and now we were going to have another, perhaps even better one.
That's just in a
Titans,
raid.
dragons, a mysterious presence, enormous robots, and for the first time in history, a secret, super secret, hard mode only boss. Just what the hell is this going to be? You really need to appreciate how amazing Ulduar, for a variety of reasons, was.
It was the best raid
First,
ever.
the design of it. The detail on the
By a
architecture
mile.
in every corner of the zone is some of the best we had ever seen. There are no bare sections that look like they could do with just a little bit here, a little bit more. Frozen halls, a forest. Just look at the scope of the room that is just for Mimiron alone. From start to finish, it played out as it should, as a full-on assault. We weren't simply strangers in a foreign land like we usually were inside a raid, but now the place was designed to play out, with us as invaders blowing down doors, disabling the outer defenses. Secondly, the voice acting. Ulduar gave us
It's weird to think
all
how
of
good this was.
I'm ready to play!
Your will is no longer your own.
How can you not love this? This is the best we had seen since Karazhan. The model itself. Ask yourself, how many different
can
levels
never
of
like
difficulties
Karazhan.
are there for Ulduar? 2. Just 2.
It is
10
I
and
can't.
25. That's it. Within those
Two
two
difficulties.
simple restrictions was content designed for pugs all the way up to the most hardcore players on the
That's
planet.
right.
The ability to have the choice per boss as to whether you wanted to try it harder or easier, and many stages in between for some bosses. A chance at those couple of extra decent items, or simply do it in the easier mode and do a different, harder one later without just sticking the entire raid into normal, hard. It's amazing. Let's say you're a pugger. Got a bunch of low-geared guys? Alright, we'll do normal mode all the way. A mixed group with some experience and some newbies? Maybe you do XT hard, but the rest normal. Or a very well-geared group.
That was
We
actually
can do
really
hard
cool.
mode
I never thought about
Leviathan,
that, yeah.
XT maybe, Thorim or Hoda. Which honestly,
Almost any
accessing
guild
the
could
best
kill
loot
Flame
in the game in
Leviathan
a
at
pug
least.
while still being able to do the whole
Almost.
thing normal instead is great. By today's standards, using the Ulduar model, there could be simply be normal and mythic. Probably still Alpha though. It doesn't even make much sense that normal and heroic even exist anymore, when the opportunity
actually
exists
true.
to be more creative with boss design.
That's very
while giving
fucking
people
true.
choice. Look at Hellfire Citadel, for example, using the Ulduar model. Iron Reaver could split in two, similar to Morchok, and using artillery to switch DPS targets in a similar vein to the Twin Emperors of Anchorage. Hellfire
Listen to
Council
these
could have a
ideas.
different order, which we can all agree would certainly mix up the strategy, and so on and so on. We sat down and couldn't think of any reason why the Ulduar setup was a problem. But as we'll find out, yeah, it totally fucking was, apparently. Despite Algalon being visually striking, yet disappointing, Ulduar cemented its place in history as one of the best raid zones they've ever created. So it was justifiable to create something people absolutely fucking hated. Just under 5 months had passed since the Gem of Ulduar had appeared. We had all seen the construction of the Argent Tournament grounds going on in the north of Icecrown, and then suddenly the announcement of not just another raid,
like
but
this
new
raid,
5 months,
dude.
of course,
Don't,
a
dude.
brand
Yes,
new
I
set
did.
of raid
I like
options.
this. No, shut up.
The attempts at making everything accessible was already starting to show how hard Blizzard was having it. No matter how cool or inventive they were in opening the doors wide for as many people as possible, without making the content so trivial no one would reasonably enjoy it, nothing was working. No matter what you do, there will always be people who prefer the previous system. But Blizzard was not going to give up, not just yet. The raid
This
and
is where
dungeon
they did
system
10-man
was
and
changed
25-man
in
heroic.
every major patch of Wrath of the Lich
To
King.
toggle on.
And this time, they really screwed it up.
The beginning of
gotta
the
say
end.
Trial of the Crusader was a good raid. It was solid. As a one-off
No.
raid with no trash, with a quirky theme and a few interesting bosses, and yes, I even enjoyed the faction champions.
I
They
didn't.
should have been a nice addition to the legendary grind we
dog
were going
shit.
to do in Ulduar. Once the short progress of TOC was done, as it should do, it would take less than an hour for an experienced guild. So how do you screw that up? 4 lockouts a week. With the fancy new toggle ability, we had 10 normal, 10 heroic, 25 normal, 25 heroic. What a joke. Only if
That
you
was
were
the
fully
fun part.
geared
What
from
do you mean?
Ulduar hard modes could you skip over
You
even
spend
the
all day in
normal
there, it's
10-man
great.
version. Everything else was upgrades.
Can you do it with your
all the while not missing an Ulduar reset. Gotta get those Valnirs. It also meant that due to the short time it took between Ulduar and TOC launch, that for a huge amount of people, Ulduar had come to an end, only to be replaced by repeated runs of Trial of the Crusader in its place.
TOC replaced Ulduar
As
pretty
a
much
minor
entirely.
relief, the release of TOC was staggered
It's fucking
at one new
awful.
boss every week, until finally the reinvigorated Anu Barak, and once again Mr. Menethil, made yet another appearance. As a side note, this was the raid that brought the name Paragon to everyone's minds, as the guild getting the world first heroic 25 kill, following a storming
I don't remember that
performance
at all.
of Alone in the Darkness.
Damn.
TOC was a huge misstep, as players
How
were
I forgot
burning
all
out
this
fast
shit.
while simultaneously putting Ulduar into the back seat. The new daily area was interesting, but it was the new 5-mans that caused the most uproar. When we went back to fully film them, I couldn't quite wrap my head around how long the RP is. It's cool and all, but it took so long before you could do anything.
They had to add
Once
an extra
again, I'll
button to
admit,
skip it
I was
all.
a fan of the
That's how bad
jousting,
it
and a
was.
super fan of the Black Knight being the final boss, but oh my
The
god,
Black
those
Knight.
trinkets. TOC 5-man heroic became ground zero. It was the most ninja looted place in the history of WoW.
Was
Because of
it?
an add-on.
Alright, boys. I need
Was
one more
it really?
DPS for Shattered Halls Heroic. You know the drill. Stand together, let's have a look at you.
It wasn't
Okay, okay. Well, this is quite obvious, isn't it? One of you is exceptional. The other one looks like he needs help getting dressed in the morning. It's you, son. You've got the higher gear score. Let's go.
Wait, how's there 2 of them on the
Alright, so
screen?
gear score, or just item level as you know it today, is just a commonly accepted thing, and I covered it more in depth in this video here. The takeaway is that before this cursed add-on appeared, and quite literally became as standard as a DPS meter, it changed everything. It's not as
I'm
if
gonna pause this real quick. I gotta take another piss. I'll be right back. Gearscore was great.
It's been about an hour or so. Go ahead and subscribe with Twitch Prime. Go ahead and start gifting subs. And go ahead and I don't know. 8 fucking cowboy in the showers at Ram Ranch. You guys are so weird, dude. You guys are so fucking weird, man. Yo, how mad are you guys that I'm still hanging out with Asmon on this stream? Like, you guys are still so mad. It's so sad. Isn't it sad, dude? Isn't it sad?
In what said?
All right, go ahead.
What isn't what said?
I don't know, dude.
I tried to crawl up to fucking sneak up on you to hear what the hell you were saying. I couldn't hear any of it though. Cheese Puffs, Invader, Zim, thank you guys both for the gifted subs. I really fucking appreciate that, guys. Thank you. I love you.
Finding groups was more friendly before this, or people didn't inspect you, etc. The difference now is that you could be flat out excluded before any dialogue was opened up. When someone says something innocent like needing 5k gear score to do a previous expansion raid or some other insane nonsense, then it's not only the people who are looking to do that content who are excluded, but everyone else who sees that message in trade and doesn't meet the requirement also gets the message that you are not good enough to join in with that content,
they suck
even if
dick.
you wanted to. Gearscore was player made though.
That was
brought
great.
That themselves.
That
With
was
Wrath,
good.
It was the great but weird decisions that created the unstable ride.
I love
Dual spec
Gearscore.
was brought into the game. Amazing. After 2 expansions being locked into specs with ever absurd prices to change and play something just a little bit different, I mean, I just want to play my character without being reamed out for it.
No.
Of course, though, when dual spec did arrive, also the most ridiculous comment ever came, which was that tri-spec would never be a thing, as that would destroy the RPG aspect.
You see, 2 specs is fine, but 3, what about our fucking immersion?
That's true.
Is that a Nixia? It's a fucking revamp.
Oni did come back. It was a decent revamp,
I
actually,
forgot
with
all
some
about
nice
this.
new mechanics to combat the changes that screwed up Naxxramas.
This shit was easy.
But still a weird decision considering the backlash from Nax.
What the fuck would you bring out on Nixia
Oni
again?
came back as just a test to see if they added a lot of modern tweaks to the old gal,
No.
if it would work. Inscription, guild calendars, equipment managers, and of course the most requested feature of all time, trumping achievements and all the other nonsense and everything else we'd seen in Wrath was the barbershop.
Fucking barbershop.
Hey!
What? It sucks.
Don't be dissing the barbershop, mate. Yeah? You need it, fucking casual. Stick to your guides.
Wow.
Mother.
So it's time. We've done the story, we fought the
There we
masses of
go.
undead, and now we have
Real
forced
shit,
Arthas
boys.
from appearing in every cutscene.
There it is.
After all the returning players had stuck it out for so long and ridden this roller coaster of change, it was time to descend on ICC. Which also meant, of course, changing the raid system again. But we'll get to that.
This was the day, ladies and gentlemen. December 8th, 2009. This was the day the Kalawak Fishing Derby came to WoW.
Wait, what?
And LFD.
Wait, what?
As someone who was there and was a tank, I thought LFD was the shit. Instantaneous
It was
queues,
great.
and I had the gear score to carry
should've
the
never
group,
added
so
it,
from
but it
my
was great.
very in-depth, experienced point of view, LFD was just aces. Brava.
I was a fucking
My
god
guild
at this.
chat, though, kept banging on about hour-long queues, crap
Yep.
tanks, crap healers, wiping, and that lots of players were completely the worst players they had ever seen. Groups
That's
that
about
couldn't
right.
even finish the dungeon. Let me try my DPS ult then. Oh no.
That guy just runs in and fucking
The
dies.
thing is, many would sit back today and say, well, LFD destroyed the player base, right? People just overnight
help.
became so much worse than ever before. No. The fact is, you just weren't exposed to these players before. Let's make a simple comparison.
That's right.
How many people refuse to make their own groups but will endlessly complain about the requirements of someone else's group? Now take all the way to players who
Wow,
flat
that
out
sounds
refuse to
familiar.
join into any other content with other players in
Yes.
an MMO. Alright? Now take that mindset.
Aggressive
Multiply it by
bads.
the time it takes to not be anonymous in any way and dedicating lots of time to finding a 5-man group as we had done previously. That is a huge, huge amount of players who you never ever interacted with in any way whatsoever.
Thank
who in all
God.
likelihood have little to no experience, and now they have an option to queue up using the minimum effort, and also have anonymity to remain completely safe.
Yep.
Basically, LFD opened the floodgates to the apparent millions of players you never knew existed.
And you don't want to know they existed.
They always existed. I'll say it was funny to start finding people who no longer knew where the dungeon entrances were and couldn't corpse run without getting lost after most likely causing the wipe. That was pretty funny. So while we're on the 5-mans then, the Forge of Souls, the Pit of Sauron, the Halls of Reflection have joined the dungeon list. The most interesting thing about these dungeons is that all 3 were a linear story, all connected together, one after the other. After the initial intrusion into ICC, we would break in, set up camp, having the initial forces imprisoned into slavery, all the while working from scout reports that the Halls of Reflection held some secret as to how to defeat Arthas.
was fucking awesome, though.
As much as I'm not a lore nerd, the big question was flying around since the announcement of Icecrown Citadel. How exactly do you defeat this bro? The 5-mans were some of the best, not only being visually interesting, but the story and culmination of Arthas, chasing you all the way to the ending. It was so cool. The twist that defeating Arthas only meant that someone else had to replace him would lead to wild speculation, mostly targeted at Tyrion to become the next Lich King. So back to yet more changes though. As TOC was intended to be a nice little side distraction, but turned into a burden-laden
distracted everyone
grindfest,
from Ulduar
that it
and
was
killed
why
the
they
best
had
raid
to
ever.
switch it up again. Now we had a toggle, allowing players to change between heroic and normal on a boss-by-boss basis, while still keeping 10 and 25 separate. So essentially, a far less creative Ulduar. This was also the culmination of Blizzard's interference with guild progression.
Here we go.
For some reason, since
The
the
locked
mid-Burning
wings.
Crusade,
This was so
Blizzard
great.
seemed to feel they owed a duty of care to players who would raid non-stop hardcore from the get-go.
Everyone.
Why? Who the fuck knows? Limited time on Algalon. 1 boss a week for TOC, and ICC would have 1 wing released per reset, as well as limited attempts for the end of wing bosses. It was a double whammy in ICC.
Limited
Probably also
attempts.
the
That
point
was a
when they
great
decided
mechanic.
it was a dumb idea, as the hardcore of the hardcore will always find a way around it, either by soulstoning entire raids or simply leveling and gearing multiples of their own character to test bosses before using up the attempts on their main characters. Either way, in we went.
Great
and
mechanics.
they nailed it. This was a very big deal. Like Deathwing to Cataclysm, the expansion was built around this one zone. Personally, I always consider the visuals to have been the best part of ICC. The bosses, for the most part, were pretty lame for me as a mechanics nerd.
Just say it,
Blood
preach.
Queen, Putricide, Syndragosa, fantastic. Excluding the big man, I never got any significant memories from anything else. While Blood Princess and Valithria were some of the ones I thought were annoying, ICC overall was just a nice place to be in. None of that mattered though.
You'd
No
hope
one
so.
gave a
You
shit
spent a
about
whole
that.
year there.
It was all about Arthas, and my god. Standing on that platform for the first time, seeing him sat on the throne staring down at us, knowing it was about to go down.
Ooh.
The countdown with Tyrion shows that even long RP doesn't have to be a chore like Saurfang.
That's
The
right.
tension surrounding those last few seconds was great, no matter how many times you wiped.
So be
I'm
it.
sure I don't need to go
Champions
over how
attack.
the fight plays out for anyone watching this, but what I can relate is the absolute elation and delight of that first progression kill, with Arthas floating as we all got res to bring him down, followed by Bolvar taking up the mantle, complete with a new statue in Dalaran for non-raiders to see what happens.
The nubs.
Now for the bullshit then.
That's what
The
they should
biggest
do instead
outrage
of
that came
LFR.
out of
Give 'em
ICC
statues
wasn't
to
that
click
a
on.
disciplined
Fuck 'em.
priest was fundamentally required to counter Arthas' most destructive spell Infest.
Yep.
It was when it came to the heroic modes. You see, the system still worked that 10-man was easier than 25. So there was the loot power difference. 25 got stronger loot. By this point, there was more dedicated 10-man guilds than 25.
I wonder
With the
why.
content being easier to play and easier to set up, that growing voice became very, very, very pissed with the perceived unfair benefits that 25-man players were getting. To really sting them in the tail, though, the world first Lich King heroic 10 kills, the realm first, that the 10-man guilds have been working their balls off on, they were pretty much all done by the 25-man guilds.
That's
It
because
was all
the
about the
25 man
precious
guilds are better.
rankings, of course. But it does seem honestly unfair that their progress, the 10-man dedicated, was stomped all over by overgeared players from 25-man just walking in and crushing it.
That's right.
At least we know that eventually the arguments
right.
between 10 and 25 would find harmony and peace, singing songs and sharing hot dogs at the weekend.
That's sarcasm, by the way.
That wasn't the end of Wrath of the Lich King raiding, though. was also Halion. Hey everybody, this is my conclusion to
Halion.
the video. So there are lots of things we had to leave out of this because it's already way too long. So flower power, Anuba Rack's achievement, gotta go. That had to be dropped out, and a few other things.
That was
so don't
dog
worry,
shit
we do know
too.
about them, but I didn't think they were really relevant to the memory, as most of those things got changed anyway. The focus of the end of Wrath of the Lich King was really strange. It was a period of time where in PvP, casters dominated, and we had wizard cleave and overpowered trinkets and all that kind of stuff, so people were just getting blown up in PvP. In the PvE world, it was...
Was he
a
reading
case
the
of
script
just
right there?
farming legendaries, getting those shadow
I wonder.
ones, getting those Valnias, just getting all these stuff. People.
That's fucking
Limeron's
funny.
Head was a big one.
I never scripted out any of my videos.
Invincible and so on and so forth. Getting all these things for everybody. And it was an ambivalent time. As I remember it, as somebody who played through the entire thing, is I remember it being an ambivalent time. Wrath of the Lich King was a strange one. It wasn't as exciting as the end of Vanilla was, where we were looking forward to this big new expansion, and then the first expansion where we'd never experienced it before. We didn't know what was going to happen.
It shows.
Or
Fuck
exhausting. I genuinely did want to quit the game when Wrath of the Lich King was coming out. That is absolutely true. The beginning of this video is completely true.
I never
because
did.
It was exhausting. We had the hardest raid content ever with the Sunwell, which did nearly kill my guild multiple times. They had to take massive breaks, and it was difficult and a chore. And you had to fight through it all. And the end of Wrath of the Lich King was kind of like, we've seen this process before. The Kata trailer dropped, and instead of being like, oh my fucking god, like a lot of people who'd left the game saw when
People
they
were
saw
just
it on TV,
relieved.
for many of us who had been through the entire expansion, it was another big bad that probably won't have any effect on the world at all. As you've probably noticed through the many WoW expansions, there's nothing really changes. And we were starting to see that, a gear reset once again, more levels, same new stuff, just repeating over. But we still loved the game. It just wasn't exciting like the Burning Crusade was. It wasn't, you know, Deathwing Burning Stormwind was cool, but it wasn't as cool as like, oh shit, Arthas is coming, or the Burning Legion. Because it had happened to us a couple of times before that.
I guess so, yeah.
So my final memories of Wrath of the Lich King are, I could say this without a shadow of a doubt, there are far more players who remember Wrath of the Lich King as probably their favourite expansion ever. And I totally get that.
I think most people would say Wrath is their favourite.
It started the accessibility train. So a lot of people, huge amounts of people, got to experience things like raiding for the very first time, because obviously raiding was made much simpler in many ways. Gameplay became much simpler, so people weren't excluded from content anymore, right? So people who were scared to tank could go in and tank now, because that process was much easier. It was for me and my friends who would fall into like, oh, you're elitist because you used to do it the old school way, right? I made the joke about the old school in the video.
Bring back elitism.
No, it's just that we were playing a different game. We were playing a game
better
where
game.
you had to do some really stupidly over-the-top hardcore things.
That's right.
In order to get to where you wanted to go, and that was being taken away. And for many of us, Wrath of the Lich King was actually a different type of game for the first time. And that's why we always felt a little bit salty about it. I wasn't as salty as everyone else calling everyone a scrub lord or a wrath baby or anything like that. I wasn't that much of a dick. But I knew where we were coming from, which was we were used to a different kind of game. Well, I think for the vast majority of people, Wrath of the Lich King was probably their favourite ever expansion. So, as we did with the Legacy of the Burning Crusade, we have a little music video prepared for you. Mr. Ghosty's made this one. He's quite happy with it. I hope you enjoy it. And also, this video is entirely supported by Patreon. Okay, so the guys over at Patreon get this video like a week early, as well as the other legacies. Now we have 2 of us on board. We will be producing many
Oh yeah, that is my
these.
same backpack. Yeah, you're right.
It's a process.
Right there.
As I laboured over this one until Ghosty came in and we managed to wrap it up very quickly. So we're going to be producing hopefully one every couple of weeks. We have quite a few that are already out, so you can look at a lot of Legacy of WoW, the Burning Crusade, Vanilla, and several.
I do feel like that was a good video though. Like, overall, I think Wrath probably, it was one of the best times in my life. Before I say like anything else beyond that, I think it was one of the best times in my life.